Okay, we are still admitting people, but I think it's time to let everyone in. So welcome everyone. As I said, we had just under 600 registrations for this event. So to manage the room effectively, we're asking that you keep your mic muted and your video off, but please do communicate via the chat. I want to say a huge thank you on behalf of the social enterprise that I co-founded, Rocking Your Teens. Again, your donations have raised this time, I think it's about £380 towards our social enterprise, which will go towards increasing resilience, inspiring, and raising aspirations of teenagers. Actually, we ran an event this week and we had 333 young women from all over the country attend, and it was an amazing, inspirational event. So your contribution helped make that happen, and I want to say a huge thank you. If you want to find out more about Rocking Your Teens, please do go to our website, rockingyourteens.com. And my colleague Sandy, when she has a moment, because she's letting people into the meeting, but when she has a moment, she will post a link to Rocking Your Teens as well. So my name is Jenny Garrett. I'm an award-winning career coach, author, and leadership trainer. My books explore the empowerment of working women and women in leadership roles. And together with my team, we use our years of experience in coaching and leadership to support women and ethnically diverse leaders to progress in the workplace. As well as that, we do quite a bit to support majority group leaders, usually white leaders, in making inclusion happen. Following our last event, What Black Staff Need from White Managers, many of you would have attended that event. My colleague Sandy will actually share a link to the recording of that event in case you haven't seen it. Following that, we listened to your request for a follow-up and felt that allyship was a way for you to take action on your commitments to supporting Black colleagues in the workplace. So please note that today we are specifically talking about Black colleagues, not Black, Asian and ethnic minority colleagues. And what the research shows and what we understand is that the Black experience is not the same as those from Asian and ethnic minority groups. And it's too often combined. And we believe that doesn't deliver the desired change that's actually needed. So we're recording this session, but it will just be what the speakers say. You can send questions directly to me if you wish via the chat, and I will read them out anonymously. Or you can just talk in the chat, and Sandy will keep an eye on that and redirect the questions to us also. As always, I encourage us all to adopt a beginner mind here, in which we're open to learning from each other. None of us are perfect. We're all capable of saying the wrong thing. But let's be kind and forgiving and assume that we all have positive intentions. I hope we can all agree to that. What I'd recommend is if you can't agree to that, you let me know. And this probably isn't the right space for you, because this is a space of positivity and positive intentions. So during this session, experienced executive coaches, Claudia Crawley, give us a wave, Obehi Alofoje, give us a wave, and Jessica Rogers, give them a wave, all listed in the Diverse Coaching Directory, a directory which connects corporate organizations with coaches from Black, Asian, and ethnic minority backgrounds. We'll discuss approaches that you can take as a non-Black leader to support your colleagues. And again, when Sandy gets a moment, because I can see that she's been letting the over 300 of you now into the room, she will also post a link to our directory. I just want to be clear about the directory. It's a directory of coaches from, as I've said, Black, Asian, and ethnic minority heritage. But we don't just coach colleagues from Black, Asian, and minority ethnic heritage. You know, it's a way of diversifying your leadership team if the coaches that coach your leadership team come from diverse heritage. It's a way of bringing more diverse perspectives into your organizations. And it's also another way of showing your commitment to having a more diverse network and having more diverse ideas into the organization. So whoever you are, you can benefit from the right coach, and that coach might be a coach from a Black, Asian or ethnic minority background. So do check out the directory. It's a growing directory and we're really proud of it. And I'm really proud to shine a light on the diverse group of coaches that are out there. So how it's going to work is that Claudia, Obi and Jess will briefly introduce themselves. And I'm going to start off by asking them some questions, and then we're going to open it up to you for your questions and reflections. And we'll also keep an eye on the chat throughout. So what does it mean to be an ally? Well, I think to be an ally means to take on the struggle that Black people experience as your own, to recognise the advantages that you have at work and transfer them and the benefits they give you to Black people that don't have them. It also means to amplify voices of Black colleagues before your own, and to stand up even when you feel scared, and to understand that your education is up to you and no one else. So I want to start with a poll to help you think about your allyship. There are different levels of allyship that we all experience, and we kind of can go through this continuum. So I'm going to explain it to you first of all, and then what I'm going to do is open up a poll. So the first level of allyship is that you're apathetic. You don't really have an understanding of any of the issues surrounding diversity and inclusion that are in the news today. Yeah? And you're thinking, is this really a big issue? I'm just a bit curious to find out more, but I'm not completely committed to it, or I don't completely understand it. The second level is that you are aware. You know the basic concepts, but you might not be active on behalf of yourself or others, but you do know what the issues are. Yeah? And you might be thinking, how do I do more? How can I do more? How can I learn more? The next level is that you're active. You're already quite well informed and you're sharing and seeking diversity, but you might not be doing it in a very proactive way. So you might wait to be asked or wait to be prompted. So you'll be in that space of being active, but you need prompts to make you spring into action. And the final level is that you're an advocate. You're already committed and you're routinely and proactively championing inclusion, particularly for your Black colleagues. So I'm going to open up the poll now, and it would be great to see where you see yourself. Are you apathetic, not sure where you are, not sure, completely committed to this, or know where you are at this point, but curious to learn more? Aware, but not really taking any action, taking action when prompted, or an advocate, really proactively going out of your way to be an ally. So let's see where you're at. Okay. I love the way you're completing this poll so quickly. Really impressed with all of you. 81% of you completed it so far. Be great if we could get to 90%. Just give it a few more seconds. 88. 89%. 90%. Okay, I'll close it there. Great. Thank you so much for completing that poll. That's fantastic. So we've got 90% of you have completed it. And here are what the results say. So we see none of you are apathetic, which is good. You already started that journey. Some of you are aware, but not sure how to take action. Most of you, the 45% of you, are active, but it's mostly when prompted. So you kind of know what you can be doing, but you need prompts to do it. And 32% of you, the second largest group, are saying you're an advocate. You're routinely going out of your way proactively to challenge, to take colleagues' challenges on as your own, and to proactively be an ally. So we're in great company. It's really great to see where you're at. As always, with all of us, there's always more to learn, isn't there? So it's great to know where you're at, but including myself, there's always more to learn wherever we are at. So thank you so much for sharing. That's fantastic to see. And just a reminder that we're specifically thinking about being an ally, being a non-Black colleague who's being an ally to Black colleagues in the workplace. So let's start with some introductions now. Claudia, it would be great if you just gave us a brief introduction to who you are. Thank you. You are muted, Claudia.
Okay, I'm Claudia Crawley. My business is Winning Pathways Coaching. I'm an author, an award-winning mentor, and I'm an executive and career coach. I specialise in working primarily, but not exclusively, with women social work managers. And I've got 25 plus years experience of activity in the anti-racism movement, and that's delivering anti-racist training to white staff and running support groups for Black and brown workers. I'm also a member of the Women's Equality Party, and I lead their Race Equality Allies group. And I know that there are quite a few of them here. I'd like to big them up because they're a real amazing group. I also coach Black staff facing challenges at work, and I offer a service to white coaches challenged by issues of racism that may arise whilst they're actually coaching Black clients. So that's me in a nutshell.
Wonderful. Thank you for that nutshell. There's a lot that you do, Claudia, and it's great to hear about it. And I know we just scraped the surface of what you've said. So do check her out. Claudia is on Twitter and on LinkedIn. And do link in with us, do connect with us. Jess, please introduce yourself. Are you having a problem unmuting? Oh. Try one more time.
Thank you, Jenny.
No problem.
Great, thank you. So hello, I'm Jess Rogers. I am a coach and I work with a diverse range of clients, including women embarking on new business ventures, and established entrepreneurs who are ready to scale. And I also work with leaders who are really eager for challenge and impact. And also organisations. I work with organisations who want to create an environment where everyone thrives. And I think that particularly at this time, as we live and work through what is quite a tidal change in society, I am really passionate about equity and inclusion. And so a lot of my work most recently has been with individuals to really help them to navigate as they try to change the system. And at the same time, while doing this, they can really own their authentic leadership. And with the organisations I'm working with, it's all about helping them to really listen to and understand the authentic voices that they have there, within those organisations, to actually listen to help to really affect change. So I'm really pleased to be here today and glad to continue this conversation. So thank you for having me.
Thanks so much, Jess, and great to have you here again. And Obi, over to you.
Hello everyone again. My name is Obehi Alofoje, and I'm a psychologist and stress management consultant and productivity coach. I'm a co-founder of a company called Aurora Wellness, which is a mental health and productivity consultancy that delivers a range of personal development coaching programs designed to strengthen employee mental resilience and improve workplace productivity. We champion employee well-being and, of course, change the way that people think about mental health in the workplace. Now, when it comes to racism, this have a significant impact on people of color and Black people, especially in the workplace. So I'm, here for it, and very happy to be here again with you guys as well. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I've had just a query around the question around Black colleagues having a different experience to those from Asian and minority backgrounds. And I can point you to the research later on. But I think actually when you look at the stats just generally, so if you look at who's at the top of organisations in the UK, there was some research done called The Colour of Power that was done in 2020. And they showed there's very few people from diverse backgrounds at the top of organisations. But when you break that down into which backgrounds they come from, you'll often see there's no Black people or very few Black people. It's often people from Asian and minority backgrounds that they're discussing. And as we've gone through our work in many organizations, we're also finding that the diversity initiatives mean that people from Asian and minority backgrounds are elevating and breaking through that glass ceiling, but Black colleagues are not. And there's a recent piece of research that showed that Black women have less opportunity to have informal conversations with senior people in organizations than any other group. And those informal conversations are the conversations that help you get a sponsor and help you move forward. So there is quite a lot out there. I just wanted to speak to that point straight away to explain our rationale for this event. But thank you so much, all of you, for introducing yourselves. I hope you can see that we've got some really high quality speakers here with a wealth of experience and a real passion around diversity, equity, and inclusion and belonging. So I'm going to start with our first question, which is, why do Black colleagues need allies in the first place? And I'm going to go to you, Obi, first. You know, why do Black colleagues need allies in the first place? Why do they need you, Obi?
Why do they need me, indeed? My first instinct when I thought of this is because it's not our problem. We didn't start it off. We didn't cause it. We didn't create a system. We didn't create the rules. Therefore, we need allies to be able to change the tide of things. So we cannot do it ourselves because it's really not our problem as Black people. So I hope that's just as simple an answer I can give at the moment. Yeah.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Obi. And moving on to you, Jess.
I think for me, I think Obi's really hit the nail on the head. And I also think that when you're the only one in a situation, you know, it can be very, very stressful, actually, maybe not outwardly stressful, but in terms of when you're coming each day into a situation where you can feel that you're on your own, that really impacts your mental and emotional health. And it also then in turn impacts in the way that you do your job, that, you know, you can't do it to the best of your ability if you're always in that situation where you feel alone. And so knowing you've got allies, knowing you've got people who have your back, you know, knowing that even though you're the only person who looks like how you look, there are other people who understand you, who are taking steps to understand you, you know, that's only going to help your well-being and help your performance as well. So that's why allyship for me is really important.
Thank you so much, Jess. And Claudia? You're muted, Claudia.
Okay, maybe I'll just...
You're fine now.
Is that all right?
Yes.
Okay, so what I was saying was the workplace, it's a microcosm of what happened in the wider world, and it contains the same microaggression, the same inequalities, and the same systemic racism. So it's part of the problem in terms of keeping people down. Now, Jenny just came up with some figures to prove that. I'm just going to throw in a couple more. There's a survey released just this morning, in fact, by the TUC, that showed that Black and Asian workers are more likely to be turned down for jobs than promotion. And in the NHS, which everybody loves, in London, Black midwives are disproportionately more likely to face disciplinary proceedings and dismissal than their white counterparts. So no matter what level of success we as Black people achieve in the workplace, because of ingrained racism, we face discrimination. Someone will always see us as not as good as our white counterparts, or they may think that we just don't belong there. So why do we need you as white people as our allies? Well, racism is maintained by systems set up by white people for white people. So it's simple. The more of you who join us in tackling it, the better. And on top of all of that, you have something we don't have, something which is very powerful. You have the privilege that comes with being white. In other words, you don't face impediments because of the colour of your skin. You can browse in shops without being eyed up suspiciously. You can walk the streets without fear of being stopped and searched. And when you understand that fact, it enables you to leverage that privilege and bring about change.
Thank you. Have you? Yeah, you finished, Claudia? Sorry, I wasn't sure.
Yes.
Yeah, I didn't want to interrupt you. Yeah, I think you make really good points. There are lots of people who don't feel comfortable with this idea of privilege, with this language, and to really understand that by privilege, we don't mean that you've had a privileged life at all. We just mean that you are not discriminated against because of the color of your skin. And I think that clarity around that, you might have had a really tough life and be a white person and be a white man. So we're not saying that you're born with a silver spoon in your mouth or any of that sort of thing, but just that you are not discriminated by the color of your skin. And there's a really great quiz, actually, which I will send the link to you by the end of this, this session today, which is actually called a privilege quiz. And it just helps you to understand what we mean when we're talking about privilege. And that the language we're using is not the privilege that you might have been thinking about when you went to school or when you look in the dictionary. This is a different kind of privilege and much more about the fact that you are not discriminated against because of that. Yeah, and we all have privilege. You know, I have some privilege. I might be a black woman, but I'm an able-bodied black woman. I'm a straight black woman. So I'm not discriminated against because of my disability or because of my sexual orientation. And I just want to be clear, because I know that some people can feel upset about as soon as we talk about privilege. And what I really want you all to be is open to listening and today, and just being open to hear what we're sharing with you. Great, thank you. Oh, sorry, did someone say that?
Yeah, I just in a question from Estella said, Obi, since we're being affected by what's happening, don't you think it's our problem also? And I think that's the comment I made. It is our problem. It's our problem to help solve, but we can't solve it alone. Because it was something that was done to us Black people. So you can't solve this problem because other people have to get to buy into it. And in terms of population, we're still the minority, if that makes sense. So if we were the majority, this would be a different conversation, right? We just make the change. But we can't make the change by ourselves, hence why we need allies. But we need to be able to educate allies to be able to help them understand that this is something they created. They created a house, invited guests in and said, hey, here's your home, treat it how you want. But actually, no, but don't sit on that chair over there. Don't sleep in that room over there. But the rest of us can. That's a whole different story. So we can't go into someone's house and start demanding, okay, I want to be there. You have to take permission. You have people have to get behind you to say, yes, we are all now part of one family. And therefore, what's yours is mine. But until that thought process is there, or that innate feeling is there, we can grow. You don't have it naturally, but it can be developed. Until that happens, it's not just our problem, and we cannot solve this by ourselves. So I hope that answers your question, Estelle. I just saw that and I thought I'd mention it.
Thank you so much. Yeah, I love the fact that we're having a discussion here, because this is what it takes. It takes us to discuss these tough issues, to ask the questions that we need to ask to really understand and really educate ourselves in this space. And even when I've been speaking to Claudia and Jess and Obi, we've been having discussions as we talk about this topic as well. You know, there is something about the burden on someone, yeah? So I think that's really important to recognize. If your Black colleagues, if there's one Black colleague in a department of 10 people, the burden on them to educate everyone, to stand up for themselves, to try and encourage everyone to their perspective, and not be called an angry Black person, and not be, you know, not be marginalized or managed out of the organization is tough. And I think that's important to really think about, to be able to fight your corner on your own all the time and be the lone voice. Imagine what that feels like, which is why we need allies. So my second question to you, what does performative allyship look like? And what's the problem with performative allyship? After all, it is allyship, isn't it? Claudia, I'll go to you first of all.
Yeah, that's an interesting phrase, performative allyship, because for me, it's an oxymoron. Because I don't think performative allyship is allyship. And here's why I think that. Because there are people who call themselves allies who use social media to express their outrage at injustice. Great. Their underlying aim is about looking good. It's about getting a virtual pat on the back. And yet they are silent when they witness racist behaviour right in front of them because it makes them uncomfortable or they don't want to rock the boat. And second, it's about people who take the knee in public and do sod all in private. So the issue is that it does nothing to support us or change things for us. It's a way of getting unearned admiration for stuff you're not doing. In my view, it's manipulative, it's self-seeking, and we know when you're doing it. So for me, performative allies are not allies, period.
Lovely. Thank you. Very, very powerfully delivered there, Claudia. Thank you. Thank you so much for sharing that. We'll go to Obi next.
Can't possibly top that. That was perfect.
But just to say, we don't have to top anything. We're all bringing our
no, but I love that.
And delivering in different ways.
Totally agree. And what I would say, the equivalent of just being polite. You just polite in polite company, and you're just polite because you don't want to draw too much attention to yourself as somebody who's being rude or don't care. So you say the things you need to say. It's like our kids say thank you. Don't really mean it, but I would say if I want something. So that's a classic example. But there was another example I was going to give, the social media thing. There was a when the Black Lives Matter thing kicks off, the George Floyd stuff. There was a thought leader, a real massive one in our coaching industry. I don't know if I can name her or not, but I'm just not gonna. And when it was all happening, she was silent. And of course, she had people in the community who were Black women, Black people, because mostly women coaches that she had, who were looking for her to say something. And she didn't. Eventually, when she was said, oh, but how, you're not going to say anything, she said, oh, but I already put a post out about it. A post. Like that was the proverbial tick. I've done my job around this subject. That is classic example of what that means. When it even, you need to be coerced even to do something, to perform. And then to think that that performance is one and done, when actually it's a continual work. So performative allyship is a one and done type of thing. You don't, it's not a series that keeps running. One movie and done. And it's not helpful to us. It looked like it's helpful, so we think you're on our side when you're really not. And so we waste energy on you who's not that interested, when really we should be helping to support the other people who really are, but don't know what to do. So that's why I kind of find it quite frustrating. It's like I've wasted a lot of energy on you when I should have been spending more time with this other person who really wants to get it and doesn't understand how. So.
Thank you. Great example. You know, I've sent one post and now I'm an ally. I've done my job. The work is done. Absolutely not. So this is such a great example, Obi. Thank you. And over to you, Jess.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, performative allyship doesn't create change. It's like, you know, last year when you saw all of these companies coming out with these huge statements about, you know, their diversity and inclusion policies and how they support Black and minority ethnic people or their employees, and actually they do nothing about it. The top still looks very white and very male. There's still microaggressions going on within the organization that are not called out. And an example I saw, which was even worse, was that some organizations were calling on their Black colleagues to write the statements, which were then being put out by their senior white leaders. And then that was it, nothing was changing. And then they were calling on their Black employees, and it was quite emotionally draining for these Black employees, calling on them to try and educate everybody, you know, inform on any statements they were putting out, be almost the mouthpiece for the organization to be seen that they were, you know, they were pushing forward their Black employees. But when it came to actually promotions or putting them into positions of real influence, there was silence. So actually there was all that performance, but it created no change. And what it actually did was it actually derailed and demeaned the Black employees that they had, because they spent a lot of energy on helping them to look good, but got nothing for it. So, you know, it just doesn't create change, and actually it creates more harm, I think, in some cases than good.
Yeah, absolutely. Completely agree with all of you. And let's be honest, this has been happening for forever. The truth is, even before the killing of George Floyd, there were organizations that were majority white colleagues who would find a Black person to put on the front of their brochure to mix in with everyone and pretend that this was a place where everyone was welcome. This has been happening for a long time. I think we're just naming it now and saying that it's not okay. And think about the damage that it does to your employees. You know, you're in an organization, you're thinking, okay, we want to do something, but you rise expectations by saying, yeah, we care about the diverse colleagues we have. We really care about them. We're really passionate about making a difference. Maybe you have listening groups. Maybe you ask people to write blogs and then nothing. That's almost more damaging than if you have done nothing at all. Yeah. So follow through. You know, if you're not following through on the things that you said and you're not following through quickly, you are, performing performative allyship, and you need to do something about it. So thank you so much, everyone, for your perspectives. I hope that's clearer to everyone in terms of that, because you probably heard that a little bit, heard that language and maybe wondered what people were talking about. So we are all about concrete and tangible actions. We really want you to leave here today with something that you can actually do, rather than knowing that there's an issue and being frustrated and not knowing how to do it. And as many of you were active and really wanted to move to that next stage of allyship, we're thinking about elevating you from being someone who's aware and needs a prompt, to active and an advocate in terms of your allyship. You need to take action. So I'm over to you, ladies, to be thinking about how you can ignite action in the people here today. And we're up to 355 of us. So imagine if they take one action forward, what that ripple effect will be in the world. So Jess, I'm going to start with you. What's the important action that people who want to be allies need to be taking?
I think it's being able to, it's listening, and actually listening when a Black or a diverse colleague is telling you about their experience or asking for your help, to listen to what they're saying and not center yourself. I know I've experienced where you're talking to somebody and you're talking about your experience as the only Black person or the only diverse person in a team, and the answer is, oh yeah, I understand that. What happened to me was, and all of a sudden they're centering themselves. Yeah. And so what you're telling them, they're not listening. So they're saying, I'm going to help you, but they're not actually listening. So I think listening, and then actually, so I'm going to give two actions if that's okay, Jenny. Listening, and secondly, also calling out things. When you see a microaggression take place, call it out, because I think that sometimes, there's too much at stake. There's if I call it out, what's going to happen politically in that situation? Should I take people aside? I think it's important that you call out, to be an ally. When you see something that's unjust happening, call it out, say it, because then the diverse colleague will actually see that you are an ally. They'll see that they have got somebody in their corner. And also you start to then affect some change. That's when the ripple effect starts happening, because you make people think, you make people stop and think.
Fantastic, thank you. So listen and also call it out. These are the actions that Jess is imploring that you take on. We'll go to you next, Claudia.
Yes. For those of you who were on the last call, which is about what Black staff need from their white leaders, will probably remember me talking about the RESIST formula. And I actually spelt it out, and I've created a guide around that formula, the RESIST, which is an acronym. And I'm going to put a link in the chat box after I've said my bit. And it's all about how to be an effective ally. So, if you want to learn more than we're able to share here today, you can have a look at this guide. So I'm just going to take 3 points from the RESIST acronym. The first one is about education. So that's the E. You need to educate yourself, because what we know about racism is that it's a very confusing concept for a lot of people. And often we think we're talking about the same thing when we're not. So you need to educate yourself in terms of what racism actually is, how it functions, how it operates. And I would recommend that you start by reading Natives by Akala, the absolutely brilliant book. The second one is about supporting your Black friends and colleagues, and maybe even your family members. So rather than gaslighting them when they talk to you about their experience of racism.
Claudia, can you explain to everyone what gaslighting means?
Okay, sorry. Gaslighting is when you turn the issue, the problem around, so it becomes their problem. Yeah. So for example, if someone says, oh, I didn't get the job because with the panel was all white and there was a lot of unconscious bias, you might say, well, how do you know? How do you know you didn't perform well? You know, well, the person who said it might have had, you know, good evidence why they didn't get it. But it's about, you need to listen with empathy. You need to listen to our experience and, you know, support us. And the third letter I'm going to take is the T, which is about talk. It's about talking to black people about their experience. It's about talking to other organizations who are doing it better than yours and learning from them. It's about talking about racism at every opportunity and anti-racism at every opportunity in your organization, making it a standing item. And it's finally about talking to your children, because when you talk about it to them, you stop it being a taboo subject for that generation, and you are creating another generation of allies. So just those 3 letters I'll go through, but I'll put the link in the chat box to my guide.
Thanks, that's really, really helpful, Claudia. Thank you so much. And Jess?
Obi.
Oh, sorry, Obi.
Yes, okay. So, I mean, I do agree with what Jess and Claudia said. So listening, that's helpful. Especially what I'm going to add to Jess's point is to commit to open conflicts and allow discomfort. Some things will not be comfortable. So when a conflict arises in your team or wherever you are, don't try to hide it or ignore it or any of that. Allow for it, have conversations, listen. And so you're going to train yourself to feel more comfortable. The only way you can do that is to just get in there. The point that Claudia made about educating yourself, I would go one step further and I'd say engage in anti-racist education for you and your team. So this is not a one and done thing. It's a sort of series of education you're going to do for yourself, you know, courses, whatever. But depending on where you are and what your organization does, you should be talking about, or at least recommending hiring a DEI consultant to come in and train you and your whole team. So that, because then it's not something you want to necessarily do on yourself, because it is triggering. It will be triggering for you as a white person. It'll be triggering for the Black person in that situation as well. And so that's what I would say there to those 2 points.
Fantastic. Thank you very much. When I thought about this question, I thought about my own experience of allyship and what it looked like. And there was this amazing woman who found me on LinkedIn, who invited me to a group that would not be a group where I would normally think that I could belong or that would welcome me. Sort of when I got to the group, made sure I was introduced to everyone, and in many ways I think felt was a barrier to any microaggressions I could experience, and really advocated for me. That, I believe, is allyship. You know, going out of their way to find me, going out of their way to welcome and walk beside me, going out of their way to make sure I didn't have the bad experiences that I might have because they saw in me what was my potential and my talent or what I could bring. Have you done that for someone? Yeah, that if you've done that, if you have and are actively doing that for people, particularly Black colleagues, you are being an advocate. And that's, I think, what it looks like. Or it can also look like preparing someone for a situation, knowing that when you go to a situation, this is really normal for you, and there's nothing out of the norm, and it will be comfortable for you. And considering the fact that the situation that maybe you're putting someone else in might be very different for them culturally, for whatever reason, and thinking, how can I prepare them and help them be ready for that? That thought process is an act of allyship. So there are many things you can do. And I was in a session with someone yesterday, and they said, you know, there are microaggressions. Maybe we should think about micro allyship actions. It doesn't have to be the grand gesture, which is often the thing that is performative. Let me do this grand gesture and not follow it up. Instead, what small actions can you do on a daily basis to acknowledge, support, help, have conversations, listen to your Black colleagues? That's what allyship looks like, day-to-day actions. And if you can do those, then you'll be putting it into action and becoming that advocate that we think you all want to be. Now, we had a question that came in advance of the session, excuse me. And the question was, what should an ally consider when deciding whether inappropriate behaviour should be called out publicly or discussed privately? And I know, Jess, you spoke to that already a little bit, but I really wanted to understand if any others want to speak to that as well. What should you consider when deciding whether inappropriate behaviour should be called out publicly or discussed privately? So does anyone else want to speak to that question?
Can I just add something to what I said as well, Jenny? I think for me, I don't think that it needs to necessarily be something that, I think as soon as you start thinking about, oh, should I do it now or should I wait privately, you lose the moment and you lose the impact of actually calling out the thing that's happened, calling out the microaggression or the discrimination that's happened. And so whilst I appreciate we're in professional environments and you conduct yourself in a particular way, I do feel really passionately that it's important to call things out and you have to put some, if you're going to be a real ally, you have to put something at stake. You have to give something up. And part of that could be, you know, actually giving up your professionalism to some extent in service of doing what's right, because it is the right thing to call out injustice. It is the right thing to call out microaggression. And whatever the fallout, it means that you are affecting change. If you want to be a true ally, that's when you will affect change.
Thank you so much. Claudia.
Yeah, absolutely spot on, Jess, I'm with you. I think one of the important things also about calling out publicly is that you're giving a clear message to other people around that this is unacceptable. Because if you don't give that message, people think it's okay. And that person will continue doing it, and other people in the group will continue doing it. But as someone put in the chat box, a very important point, it's about how you do it. It's how you do it. Now, one of the things that is really crucial here is that we treat each other with respect, even if we don't agree with the other person's view, even if we think they've done something terrible, they are still a human being. So you need to intervene with respect. You need to intervene with clarity, and you need to intervene in a calm way, because at the end of the day, what you're aiming to bring about is change. You're not aiming to undermine, causing someone to crumble, wanting to destroy them. You don't get change in that way. You have to appeal to the very best of that person. And when you show up and you intervene respectfully, that's when you're more likely to bring about change.
Couldn't agree with you more there. Obi, do you want to add anything?
No, I think that's good. Thank you.
Yeah.
Well said.
I think when you stop to ask yourself that question, I was with a group recently and they said, well, if it was someone equal or less senior to me, I'd definitely challenge. If they were more senior, I might not. And that's the hesitation, and that's the worry, isn't it? And then you have lots of people at the top of your organization role modeling poor behavior, and no one's willing to challenge them. So if you are a senior person in the audience here today, think about that. No one's challenging me, so I think I'm doing a great job. No, they're not challenging you because of your power as the person who can make or break their career. And so you need to really find ways to be challenging yourselves. And that's why I think, you know, spaces like this, or having a coach who can really challenge you in your thinking, that's what you need. Or getting yourself a more diverse network to really, otherwise you're just speaking to this echo chamber of people who think like you, agree with you, back you up, and you're not realizing the mistake that you're making. So I think this is really key in this process, and creating a culture of humility where we can make mistakes and that's okay. If you've got this blame culture, then absolutely no one wants to call anyone out, because that's all you do is blame each other. If you work on creating an inclusive culture where actually we make mistakes and we learn and we grow, and that's okay, and we're human and we're kind to each other, as Claudia was saying, then there's more space for this kind of calling out. So culture is really important for you to be considering. So thank you so much, ladies. Gosh, only 10 minutes left. The time goes so quickly in these conversations. And I'm just going to look to a couple of questions. One was about campaigns. Just trying to find it. It was something to do with campaigns, and what do we think about campaigns on the internet that perhaps when it's, I think it might be all black faces that might be on the internet when you have, was there a blackout day, wasn't there? Do you remember? And everyone posted a black square, for example. So, you know, what do you think of those sorts of campaigns? Anyone who wants to share can.
I quite like them for some reason, because it gives pause. There's something is happening, because sometimes you can go about your day and you're busy, you're doing what you're doing, and the black squares did stop the scroll, because you know there's something going on. It allows you to now have this inner reflection of what's going on. People use the time to post links and resources. I posted some in the chat for you guys, but there are things like that that I think it brings attention back again. Question now is, what happens after that? I mean, that whole Blackout Tuesday meant that people decided to buy or seek out black businesses to do business with, because they're doing the work. They've always been doing the work, but they weren't seen. So it's that kind of like a reminder of, hey, oh yeah, I still need to do this work. This work still needs doing. What have I done in the last quarter to be able to show that I'm anti-racist and I'm being an ally, all of that stuff. So that's why I like it anyway.
Thank you very much. Any other thoughts? And you don't have to have any if you do want to say.
I guess for me, it sits a bit uncomfortably for me when I, for example, on Instagram, where you'll see somebody who's posted a black square on Blackout Tuesday, and then they say nothing else, you know, performative. And somebody said this in the chat as well, so it's related about, or it'll be the same people who are saying, I don't see colour. And actually, it's not wrong to see colour, it's wrong to discriminate against colour. But of course you see colour. It's like you don't go to the Chelsea flower show and just see flowers. You see a beautiful pink flower, you see a red, you see lots of flowers. And that's what the world that we're made up of is, lots of colour. And that's a good thing, it's a rich thing. It's about acknowledging that and acknowledging the difference and embracing the difference. But not seeing colour for me, actually, or, posting a black square but not seeing colour, I don't see it. For me, is no.
It doesn't make any sense.
It doesn't make any sense. So yeah, so I think that as long as it's not performative, the black square is great. And just to speak to the point about not seeing colour, I think it's important that you do see colour and you embrace it as well, the richness of it.
Colour is good. Otherwise, your wardrobe would be something else, wouldn't it?
Exactly. Look at us here today. If we're all sat here wearing the same,
Actually, when people say they don't see colour, it's often what it means for me that you're not seeing me for who I really am.
Yeah, exactly.
You're totally disregarding my identity, and if you're disregarding my identity, you are disregarding my experience as a black woman. And that is not helpful to me, because I am not the same as white women. My experiences are totally different. The sooner you get that, the better.
Absolutely. You don't see colour, you don't see me. So what are you seeing? It's that acknowledgement of really seeing us. So when I challenged opinions briefly, it's often led to great conversation with genuine unawareness of blind spots. So someone's saying, you know, they're really appreciating the comments around challenging people in a positive way. So that's really great. Just double checking if there's any other questions. Go on, Claudia.
Yeah, there's a really important question that came up a while back. I've scrolled right the way back on the chat to get it, because I just feel we have to respond to this one. And the question is, there's a context to it, but I'm just going to shorten it. Would it be appropriate to have a white group to work together to become good allies? Or would that be just another way of empowering white people and disempowering Black colleagues? You're okay if I respond to this first, Jenny? Yeah. Mm-hmm. This really resonates with me, because
if we do it quickly, just based on the fact we've got 6 minutes left.
Yeah, the allied group that I lead, the way I've structured it is that I facilitate once a month, and I'm around. They can contact me in between meetings. But in between meetings, they have their own WhatsApp group. And I have deliberately decided I am not going to be part of that space, because that is the space where they should feel safe enough to talk about their screw-ups and what it's like for them as white people doing this work, okay? Just as we Black people need our safe space, I think when white people are being allied, they need somewhere where they can go and just, because racism for you, white people, is not easy. It's not easy for anyone. But I think because of socialization and a whole thing about white superiority, it's doubly difficult to actually have those conversations. So I don't think it's disempowering. As long as you have a Black person who gets input, so that you can ask questions, seek clarification, and all of that, I think those spaces are okay. I don't know what anyone else thinks.
No, totally agree with that. Yeah. It would be psychologically unsafe for someone to go into a room where they don't feel that they get support, or they're allowed to say what they really feel. So the same way, it's traumatic. This is going to be a traumatic conversation for anyone to have, even at white people. It's traumatic for you to deal with some of this stuff. So you do need someone safe, somewhere safe. And if it's safe in the people who look like you, which is why I put that Dr. Robin DiAngelo video, go and watch it. Yeah, white fragility, because it suggests there is power in that, but it's about, like what Claudia said, about asking someone to be able to help review it. That way you're not by yourself, blind leading the blind kind of conversation. Yeah. That makes sense. Yeah, totally agree.
Do you want to add anything, Jess? Or?
No, I think they've summed that up. Yeah.
Yeah, I think this is really interesting in that we've done some focus groups recently with groups of white managers to ask what's getting in the way of them shifting the dial on diversity and inclusion initiatives they have in their organization. And quite often what they say is, I challenged, and it was the white colleagues sometimes who challenged me back, and I felt cut and I felt hurt, and now I've retreated because I don't feel supported. And I definitely agree that white colleagues need support around this agenda as much as Black colleagues need support as well. And what that looks like is different for different people. But if you have a group of people who get it and want to support each other, or if you have some external support so that when you try something, you have that difficult conversation, or a Black colleague says, you're not treating me fairly, and you're thinking, this cuts me to the core because I think I'm a fair person, knowing that you can have some support from somewhere that's going to be effective and help you through it is really important. So whether it's a group of white colleagues, whether it's a coach, whether it's someone external who can help you, whoever it is, the support is important on this journey, and do go out and get some. So we've got only 3 minutes remaining. Time goes very quickly.
It goes really quickly.
And I'm sure there could be many other questions that I may have missed, and apologies if we have, but I'm hoping we've given you an overall feeling. We'd love to know from you, actually, what other questions would you like us to answer? So what other topics would you like us to share, have events on? Do type in the chat, and we'll definitely bear that in mind for the future. But we always end on one coaching question that you think people should ask themselves. So the question is, what's the big coaching question that non-white colleagues attending non-Black colleagues attending should be asking themselves about their allyship journey. So what's the big coaching question that non-Black colleagues attending today should be asking themselves about their allyship journey? I'll start with you, Obi.
The question I've got is to ask yourself, what can I personally do? Like, you're not we, you and your team, just you personally. What can you do? What can you do today? That would allow you to take more steps, or the next best step that you can make. Some of you are in different stages of this right now, right? So what is your next best step right now? And then how can you do that within the next few days or so? That's what I wanted to ask yourself.
Brilliant. We'll go to Claudia next.
Yeah, my question is, there are two questions in one here actually, but it's what's the biggest challenge that's threatening to derail me, and how will I overcome it?
Fantastic. And Jess?
What's really important about this for me?
Yeah, your why, knowing your why is so important. Thank you so much. And I think the question I will leave you with is, how can I increase my level of empathy? How can I increase my level of empathy? So thank you all so much. We really do hope you found it to be a valuable session. A huge thanks to Jess, to Obi, to Claudia. You can find out more about them on our diverse coaching directory, a directory which connects corporate organizations with coaches from Black, Asian and ethnic minority backgrounds. My colleague Sandy will post in the link, but I can see so many thank yous that will probably disappear. Feel free to get in touch with me for programs that advance the careers of your Black, Asian and minority colleagues, as well as programs on topics like allyship to support your white leaders too. And I have a final thought for you. If you have come to help me, you are wasting your time. But if you recognize that your liberation and mine are bound up together, we can walk together. And that's from Lilla Watson. She was an Aboriginal elder and activist who set out to challenge for people working towards social justice. So thank you all very much. I hope you found it useful. Hope you've been able to put some ideas for future events in the chat. And we really hope to see you soon. Thank you all, and do take care. And we will share the recording. We will share the recording. So you can watch it all over again and get the amazing nuggets from these amazing women. Take care, everyone.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye,
Thanks for joining us.
everyone.
Bye.
Bye.
Claudia, Jess, and Obi, please stay. Don't go just yet. Thank you.